Hi guys, it's me, Red. Surprise, you can see me. Hello. I just thought I'd try something different to see how it goes, whether this is better or me just hiding behind the microphone is better. I don't know. We'll have to see. We'll have to check. So watch the video and then let me know in the comments whether you like this way better or you prefer me to go back to how I was doing it before, or you want to see a little bit more before you make a decision. Yeah, but it would really help me out if you could do that. So anyway, today I'm going to be reading some r/ProRevenge, read by Red. Are you ready? Okay, let's just get straight into it. Here is our first story. Can't pay for gasoline? Pay $1,000 for repairs instead. This happened in the 90s, right after I moved out of my dad's house after college. I was broke and in search of a job. My brother, who owns a local mechanic shop, helped me find a job and a place to live in the area. The place I lived was a cramped trailer park, but I did have a small patch of grass that needed mowing. Also, the place had poor heating and cooling. I had to install my own window unit and use a kerosene heater for heat. Not a good idea, by the way. But it's what was available, and it was indoor rated, surprisingly. My neighbours, we'll call Josh and Anna, are the type that have a nice expensive car despite not being able to afford power, food, etc. But who am I to judge? The car? A Ford Thunderbird Super Coupe. It's getting springtime and my weeds are starting to grow, so I get a small power mower, a gas jug and some gas. I mow my yard in about 5 minutes. Done. Next week I come out and my gas jug is empty. Well, crap. It's week 2 of mowing season and I go get some gas. This time I get less, and before I put the jug up I place a small handwritten note on it. Attention, gas thief, contains water. No, it didn't really, but I was testing a theory. And yep, they stole the gas anyway. At this point, I still wasn't sure if it was actually them or not, but I was about to find out. It's now 4 weeks into mowing season. At this point, it's warmed up. My new shiny 220 volt AC unit is humming away in the living room, and I no longer need my kerosene. I take my gas jug and kerosene jug, get some gas, Kero, mow my yard, put my gas jug just inside my door and leave my very full bright blue kerosene jug next to my mower. He took it. Anyone who works on cars knows that gasoline-powered engines will not run on kerosene. So yeah, he didn't make it much farther than the top of the hill. The best part is that the warranty didn't cover damage done by using the wrong fuel. And to fix it, the tank had to be drained, the lines had to be drained, the filter changed, and new fuel injectors installed. Josh ended up paying my brother over $1,000 to fix his car. I think my favourite part was walking by Josh later with my empty kerosene jug, mumbling about why someone would steal my kerosene in warm weather. He never admitted he did it, never stole my gas or kerosene again. Finally, he learned, or found a new victim. Okay, so I know that, fuel is expensive, but seriously, why would you risk stealing from someone else? Because this is a pretty, I don't think this would be that unusual that someone put something different in a jug, you know, You're basically taking a risk. And also, it's been many years since I've smelled kerosene, but I think they smell pretty different from my memory. But that was a long time ago, maybe 20 years ago that I smelled kerosene. So I think they smell different, but I don't know, my natural thing when I open something is to smell it. Is that not a normal thing? I don't know. Anyway, here is the next story. Homophobic parents made my life hell for 2 months, so I gave them a taste of their own medicine. So back when I was 15, I had a father who we'll call Deadbeat Joe. Deadbeat Joe was the stereotypical deadbeat father, as he almost never contacted me of his own volition, and he resisted paying my mother child support whenever he could because he hated her as she left him and took his baby away from him. So he took it out on me. His words, not mine. My mother, being the saint she was, never talked bad about him and tried to endorse a friendship between us throughout my entire childhood. I did love Deadbeat Joe and would often want to spend time with him, but to no avail, because he was always busy getting with some rather questionable women. So I was basically forgotten by him until the few occasions when he realized he remembered and he did have an older son. Because of that, I was raised by my mother and my stepfather, who I called Dad. They really loved and still do love me, and they worked their butts off to make sure I was well cared and provided for. Unfortunately, me and my family had to move away to another state when I was 12, which meant that my parents ended up buying a house, which we moved into. Now, something to mention, up to this point, we were very poor, and my parents ended up buying a house after getting a great deal for it. However, the house was and is very poor quality, and my parents didn't know that, so we ended up basically getting scammed. My mother lost her job, and over time we ended up becoming so poor that we ended up having to rely on food banks to supply us with the food necessary to survive. Luckily, or rather unluckily, Deadbeat Joe and his new wife, who we'll call Chris, said they'd take me in and that they had a good, decent quality of life, which my parents bought because, to my mother, Deadbeat Joe didn't really seem like the type of guy who would lie about something that big. So, despite my objections, I hated Deadbeat Joe by this point. I went to live with Deadbeat Joe and Chris, plus their kids, due to the fact that my real parents were about to lose our home at the time and they didn't want me to be homeless along with them. At first, they were very welcoming, but after a few weeks, things started to change. Both Chris and Deadbeat Joe had lied, and they were just as poor as my parents were. Over time, Chris had started to show the volatile side of herself, and Deadbeat Joe found out I was gay, which was a problem due to the fact that he was very Christian. They both really hated how I was LGBT, despite claiming otherwise, as Deadbeat Joe felt that I needed mental help because he felt that being gay was an illness. They tried to force me to conform to their beliefs and that being gay was wrong, but I refused, which made them very angry. Chris also ended up just being horrible and manipulative to me on a regular basis, as she would do things like set up a schedule for the time when us kids could do certain things, refused to let me go to school for no good reason, threatened to isolate me from her entire family if I didn't do what she wanted me to do, etc. Due to all this, it caused me a lot of stress and anxiety over the 2 months I stayed there, and I would cry a lot in the corner of my room, wishing that the fuses that kept breaking would set the house on fire and take me with it. It built up a lot of anger and resentment within me, and all of the things that Chris and Deadbeat Joe would do and say to me. After a while, the hostility in the house built up, and I would eventually be accused of being a pedophile who wanted to molest my brothers because Chris said that someone looked up child porn on her cell phone. Deadbeat Joe ended up taking away my phone and threatening me with knives, which culminated in me taking my phone back, running away to hide in the bushes outside of the trailer park we lived in. The cops came. My parents manipulated the situation to make it seem like I was a terrible child, and they left. The next week was a living hell. Afterwards, as Chris and Deadbeat Joe kept trying to get a confession out of me and kept threatening me, but I held my ground and was able to leave their house and move back in with my parents. By this point, I was seething with rage, but I didn't do anything to them as I wanted to move on. However, a month after I left her house, I remember the smug face Chris made throughout the week. She kept me prisoner in her house and kept trying to ruin my life. I decided that I hated her too much to not retaliate against her and her husband. So that's what I ended up doing. I decided I would sign Chris up for all the spam, junk mail I could find using information I could find online and on the school directory of the school she worked at. Looking to hear the sacred word of Scientology? Click. Want to hear about our crappy products that will fall apart after one use? Click. Want to see some hot, sexy women get it on with each other? Click, click, click. Next, I decided to send Chris's family some recordings I took of some of the things that she would say to me. During my stay at Chris's house, I had recorded the things that she was saying to me, so I had evidence to show my parents that she was abusing me. I ended up sending those recordings to all of her close friends and family before blocking them. They were very bad, so it wouldn't have surprised me if some of them ended up distancing themselves from her after listening to it. Lastly, I decided I would continue to make Deadbeat Joe pay my mother for what he owed her in child support. I was originally going to ask my real dad to adopt me, but after learning how much money Deadbeat Joe had to send my mother, around $1,200 a month, I did the math and concluded out of spite that I would let my mother keep on milking him for what he was worth until I turned 18. It's going to be quite a bit of time before I become an adult too, as currently I'm 16, so by the time I've turned 18, Deadbeat Joe will have to legally pay my mother $25,000 over the next few years of my life, which is definitely not something to sniff at. I never heard back from my evil parents after I carried out my revenge against them, so I don't really know how their immediate reaction toward what I'd done. However, after going back to the school directory to see if any changes were made to it, I discovered that almost all of the teachers' info was scrubbed from the site and my stepmother's name was nowhere to be found. I connected the dots and it made me realize that I had caused an entire site-wide change, and the reason why I'd never heard back from my abusive parents was because of how badly I had humiliated Chris, and I knew Chris would have flogged Deadbeat Joe if he dared try and talk to me again. After realizing this, I laughed so hard I almost peed my pants, and I left the school's website. Currently, I'm studying for an exam that will earn me certification in an aspect of designing, which is important for the field I want to go into. I'm taking my education seriously, and I now have opportunities that I wouldn't have been afforded if I had stayed at Chris's house. I've made some new friends, and I've now moved on from the things that my parents did to me. Oh my God. Child abuse really gets me. I think it's just such a horrible thing. The kids are the next generation, and if we really want the world to get better, we have to raise them. If you choose to have kids, it's a huge commitment because you are responsible for bringing them up and shaping their outlook on the world, and that needs a lot of care, and you really have to put them first before yourself. So I guess it's because I have kids, but child abuse really gets me. I hope you guys enjoyed those r/ProRevenge stories, and I hope you enjoyed the new video format. Please give the video a like if you did, and don't forget to comment and let me know exactly what your thoughts were, because that would really help me out. And don't forget to subscribe too while you're there doing all that other stuff. Thank you so much for watching today, guys. I will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.